Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Mastering Multi-Tenancy in Private Cloud Director. It's nice to see everyone turning out today. We appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us, and we hope you get some value out of it. Just a few programming notes, as they say. After the webinar is over, we will be sending out a copy of the slides and the recording, so you don't have to worry about that. And there are invisible people like me and others here to answer your questions. So don't be shy, ask questions. Don't wait till the end, ask questions during the presentation. We will do our best to answer them. If we can slot some in, we will certainly do that as well. Our only request is to use the Q&A function, not the chat. It just makes this easier for us to keep track of who's answering what. If you don't see the Q&A, it's usually there's a little icon at the bottom, a circle with 3 buttons in it. It says more, click on that, and you should see that. That just helps us make sure all of you get answered and not get confused. So with no further ado, let me introduce our esteemed presenters for today, Platform 9's Damian Karlson and Ayush Kumar.
Thank you, John. Ayush, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining me on this today.
Hello, Damian. Hey, everyone.
So as John said, we're here to talk about multi-tenancy within Private Cloud Director. I'm going to talk a little bit about Platform 9 and Private Cloud Director first, just as a level set. And then I will talk a bit about how we think about Private Cloud Director in terms of coming from a VMware experience. And then I will hand it over to Ayush, who will walk us through a demo of Private Cloud Director, as well as some slides kind of explaining different use cases for multi-tenancy and what that might look like for your organization. First off, why Platform 9? That's a great question. Platform 9 was actually founded by early VMware engineers in 2013. They worked on VMware vCloud Director, among other things. We've been around a long time. Our latest product is called Private Cloud Director. We have experience in this space with previous products that we used to sell. We've got 10 plus years of being in production with over 1 million cores under management. Within our organization, we have over 100 plus years of VMware experience, whether that's engineering directly or engineering adjacent. We are currently in the process of migrating a Fortune 150 customer. We're helping them migrate 40,000 virtual machines from VMware to Private Cloud Director using our open source tool, vJailbreak. And our largest customer running Platform 9 software is running 24,000 hypervisors under management. So we understand operating enterprises at a global scale, and we know how to provide a platform and an experience that keeps your business up and running. So we believe that enterprises are choosing Private Cloud Director for a variety of different reasons, but these are kind of the top 4. First of all, we believe that we bring a familiar VM management experience that's administrator friendly. It gives our customers the ability to run their virtual machines and their containers on the same platform with a single management plane. We bring all of the critical VMware features that enterprises have come to expect and rely on, such as virtual machine high availability, distributed resource rebalancing, which is our equivalent to VMware DRS, virtual machine live migration, that's the live migration of a powered on virtual machine, storage live migration, we do that as well. We also have distributed virtual switching, software-defined networking, microsegmentation with layer 3 and layer 4 security groups, storage operation offloading, and so much more. Best of all, we integrate with your existing storage and server infrastructure. So that means you don't have to go buy a new hyper-converged platform. You don't have to deal with the current lead times that we're seeing with memory and storage. You can bring your existing infrastructure to Platform 9, and it will work with Private Cloud Director. And then finally, we offer what we believe is to be the best migration experience in the industry with vJailbreak, which can execute a live or cold migration. And what I mean is we can start with powered on VMs or start with powered off VMs, depending on your change control needs. But you can execute a migration of entire VMware vSphere clusters to Private Cloud Director in weeks or months versus years at a fraction of the cost. And we can not only do the host, but we can move the virtual machines. We can move the virtual machines and do the hosts. You have a lot of choices with vJailbreak. So when I said earlier that we fit into your existing ecosystem, this is what I mean. This is kind of a slide showing a collection of different brands and vendors that our customers know and trust. We work with any of the leading enterprise storage arrays. Our REST API integrates with leading platforms like Datadog and Splunk and ServiceNow. You can run Omnissa VDI on Private Cloud Director. We offer native incremental backup with stars within the VMware backup system, such as Veeam and Rubrik and Commvault, Cohesity, and Storeware, et cetera. So we fit right into your existing ecosystem, and we believe that we offer a solid product that helps you get away from VMware and move on to an open, secure platform. So what was helpful to me when I joined Platform 9 was kind of understanding how my prior VMware experience as an administrator and as someone who worked for VMware, understanding how those features mapped to Private Cloud Director features. So as I said a second ago, when I talked about distributed resource rebalancing, that is our equivalent to VMware DRS. It accomplishes the same goal. It periodically pulls the cluster. And then if it determines that there is an imbalance of workloads on that cluster, it will live migrate those virtual machines around. VMware HA, we also offer high availability. It requires a minimum of 2 hypervisor hosts. VMware vMotion, our equivalent is virtual machine live migration. Templates and snapshots, we use flavors and operating system images. We do crash consistent snapshots that you can snapshot to an image and then boot VMs from that. A data center within VMware doesn't directly map to PCD features, but it's actually kind of why we're here today. Regions, domains, tenants, and all those things that are part of our multi-tenancy, those map kind of to that data center concept. And then, of course, VMware's proprietary file system, vVols, their proprietary disk format. We have open equivalent of all of those things. And finally, vCenter storage policies, which is having a policy that maps to a storage tier or a storage capability. We can express that as volume types within Private Cloud Director. So hopefully this was just like a really quick rundown to help you orient yourself towards Private Cloud Director as you think about your VMware experience. And so what Ayush is going to walk us through next is he's going to walk us through kind of the fundamental components of multi-tenancy within PCD, covering the foundational objects, domains, regions, tenants, et cetera. He's going to talk a bit about identity and authentication and how we handle those things. He's going to go over access control through role-based access. He's going to talk about resource isolation, quotas, and virtual machine leases. And then finally, he's going to talk a bit about network isolation and how you can have segmented networks with virtual routers, et cetera. So with that, Ayush, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you and let you go from here.
Thank you so much, Damian. That was fantastic. So folks, let's dive right into some of the fundamental constructs of multi-tenancy in Private Cloud Director. So let's start with domains. A domain essentially has its own users, tenants, groups, and authentication. Private Cloud Director ships with one default domain, which is enough for most organizations, especially if you're an enterprise. But if you are a service provider, you do have the ability to add domains to cater to needs of your end customers. The other key construct that we have is tenant, which sort of owns your resources and quotas. So it is the fundamental unit of resource ownership. So every virtual machine, volume, security group, network, and image belongs to a tenant, all of that having its own role-based access control. We have given admins the ability to create tenants self-service, and every department within an enterprise can be categorized as a tenant and can have set quotas against them. So moving on to the other two critical pieces here. So we do have a concept of a region. And what I mean by region is a region is essentially a physical site containing your hypervisors, clusters, and networks. So all of compute, networking, block storage, image in private cloud director is region scoped. A tenant can run workloads in any region available to the deployment. And when you're onboarding into private cloud director, you start up by setting up a region. The next important concept is that of a cluster. So cluster is essentially a pool of hosts where you can group hypervisor hosts in a region into one CPU memory or GPU pool. It is essentially the fault domain for VMHA and DRR. Damian previously alluded to the fact that we have our own equivalent of high availability and dynamic resource balancing. So all of that happens within this construct of a cluster. So let me quickly jump into a demo. So folks, are you able to see my dashboard?
Yes.
Okay. So let me just quickly log out here. So you can log in into private cloud director either using your local credentials or signing in with the SSO provider of your choice. I mean, right now in my setup, I'm going to be logging into the default domain that I've created using my local credentials. So here's my email, password, the domain that I'm part of. So I'll just hit sign in. And I'm right into my private cloud director application. So to get started with multi-tenancy, so what you have to do is you have to go to the gear icon on the right-hand top. Under settings, you have an option called tenants and users. Once you go there, this is the screen that you get onto, which lists the set of users that are part of the service tenant within the default domain. So right now, Ayush at Platform 9 is logged into domain default, and within that domain, he's logged into tenant service. So if I scroll down, here's a list of tenants that I have access to, and I can switch between tenants and go about doing my operations. So on this screen, I can go create a user. It's pretty straightforward. Enter your email address, display name, enter your password, pick the domain, and then go about doing the tenant assignment right here. And right now we have about 10 tenants available. So let's say I pick service. I can pick the 3 roles that we have today in Private Cloud Director, which are administrator, read-only, self-service. So once I go back, so I think that's a good segue into explaining the user roles that we have today. So in PCD, we have 3 roles. Number 1 being administrator. So administrator essentially has global access to all resources within the cloud and access to perform all operations. The other role that we have is a read-only user, which has limited access to view resources in the cloud. And then the third is a self-service user, which has, again, limited access to the cloud, but can create new virtual machines using images, flavors, networks that he or she has been given access to. So now going back to the users tab. So let's say I've created a user, mother@platform9.com. So let me just go and try to edit this. So once I hit the bubble here, so I get to either edit this user, which means I could change the tenant assignment, and within every tenant, I could change Madhura's role, let's say, from administrator to read-only, or from administrator to self-service. And then I can go ahead and hit update. The other thing I'd like to do is, once I've selected the user that I want to modify, is go and manage quotas, which is, I think, super interesting. So let's see. So the user here is Madhura, and we are trying to edit quotas for Madhura. So here, so Madhura has access to all of these tenants. So let's say we go again, just for the sake of consistency, we go under tenant service. So here I can see the compute quotas that Madhura has been assigned to. So I could change the numbers here and then go about my business. So this is about users. Now let's go to tenants. I think the way you create a user, the way you create a tenant is pretty similar to the way you create a user. Pretty intuitive. You go enter the name, description, domain to which this tenant should belong to. And you do have the ability to pick the default volume type for this tenant. So here I have 5 different volume types, and I've decided to pick Infinidad iSCSI. And then when it comes to storage, I could pick volume only, ephemeral storage, or a combination of ephemeral and volume. And now, once I have done the basic config of the tenant, the next thing is to assign users to the tenants to that particular tenant right away, and assign the role that particular user has within this tenant. The next thing that you could do here is, again, go manage quotas for tenants. This screen tells you a lot about how we've made it simple for end users to configure quotas for tenant services. So here on this screen, you could configure compute quotas, block storage quotas, network quotas, and again, go about business as usual. And then let's go a level up. Let's look at domains, which sort of entails all of tenants. So,
Hey, Ayush.
Yes, Damian.
I have a question from the audience about quotas.
Sure.
You showed that the quotas are per tenant, but they're also enforced per user. So how does that work? Can a user have a higher quota than what is set for the tenant? I guess would probably be a better way to put that.
So a user essentially is a subset of the tenant. So the quotas that get assigned at the tenant level sort of flow down to the user. So essentially, the user can have all or a subset of the quotas assigned at the tenant level. And if somebody wanted to increase the quota for an individual user, and he or she is hitting the quota limits at the tenant level, then what they could do is they could come to this screen, go to edit quotas for a particular tenant, in this case, tenant service, and then they could update the compute, block storage quotas and network quotas, and then go back and update the corresponding user quota for the object that they're interested in.
Thank you.
Perfect. So let's keep going. So going back to domains, I think let's start with, again, the very fundamental option here. So let's play with the domains that we have here. We are going to look at domain with the name SE, which has SE domain tenant 1 and SE domain EU tenant. So it has 2 tenants. So let's go edit this. So I could edit the name, I could have a description, and then go hit enable. So domain is essentially a logical construct that entails all of the tenants underneath. So we've gone about understanding some of the basic building blocks of multi-tenancy constructs in PCD. And now let's quickly go have a look at another construct that's super important for enterprises and service providers within the multi-tenancy topic is audit logs. So what we've done with audit logs is we at Platform 9 take security and compliance very seriously. And it's super important for us that our customers feel confident in buying and investing time and money into private cloud director. So security is paramount for us. So we have an audit log section where you can go pick the region of your choice, and within that region, pick the domain. And you could go down to the tenant level, and even within a tenant to the service level, and fetch the audit logs. And we do have an advanced configuration where you can even look at the different resource types. So let me see if, let me pick compute here. And within compute, I can drill down to VM/metadata and have the dropdown show me the list of number of users that are part of this tenant. And let's say I want to look at what Peter has done. And within that action, I also have the ability to drill down. If I wanted to investigate, let's say, what has Peter done in terms of updating? So I could pick the update action here, and I could, if I wanted to filter down even further, like show me all the update actions that failed. So I'll go pick failure here, and I can go down, download the audit logs. I can get this in a JSON format. And since audit logs is super critical for enterprises and service providers, not just from a security standpoint, not just from a security and compliance standpoint, but also from an incident management perspective, you could take these logs and stream them into the SIEM tool of your choice. Like Damian alluded to earlier, like we at Platform 9 support integrations with some of the leading SIEM providers out there, like Splunk, Datadogs of the world. So going back to my presentation. So I think now all of us have an understanding of the foundations of multi-tenancy in private cloud director and how that manifests on the UI. So now let's come right down to some of the important use cases. So let's start. Let's say if you're an enterprise, how would you use private cloud director to meet your multi-tenancy demands? So let's say I'm an enterprise, Acme Corp, and I have to cater to demands of the HR department, finance, engineering, shared services from an infrastructure standpoint. So what I do is I use the domain construct that's offered by Private Cloud Director, and using that, I carve out tenants for each of these departments, and each of these departments get quotas assigned just the way I showed you in the demo a couple minutes back. And then I could go about creating users within each of these tenants and giving them quotas to go run their business. So here, I think when you look at the role scopes, I think the platform admin, so the admin at the domain level has access to all tenants, all infrastructure. Now, if you're an admin within one of the tenants, so you would be called a tenant admin. And we already talked about self-service and read-only users in the previous demo. So let's look at how Private Cloud Director enables managed service providers to get isolation at the customer level. At the very top, you have Platform 9 PCD, like Provider Operated Control Plane, one platform. So you have a platform admin here, which is sort of the MSP NOC. And this admin can go and create domains at a customer level. So let's say the service provider is catering to two customers, Acme Retail and Globex Bank. So the platform admin would go ahead and create a domain, Acme Retail, and then go create a second domain, Globex Bank, and assign domain admins to each of those domains. So this platform admin, this sort of super admin, owns regions, clusters, and per domain SSO. Now, if I go down a level, so let's say I go down within the domain Acme Retail. So this, from here onwards, this again like sort of becomes an enterprise-like use case where you have a domain admin that has administrative privileges at the domain level that manages Acme's tenants, users, quotas, and SAML, and it does not have visibility into the GlobeX Bank domain and the tenants within GlobeX Bank. It's solely responsible for itself and the tenants underneath. And within domain Acme Retail, you have tenants, again, similar to the different HR engineering functions that you saw on the previous slide. Here you have tenants which are Acme Prod, Acme Dev, and you have tenant admin within each of these tenants. And then you can go about managing users, roles, resources accordingly. So far, we've gone through the building blocks of multi-tenancy in Private Cloud Director. We have looked at a live demo in terms of how you can create users, edit users, create tenants, edit tenants, manage quotas for tenants, create domains, assign tenants to domains, assign users to tenants. And now we have looked at the use cases that Private Cloud Director solves for. Just to summarize all of that, I know this was quite a bit. To summarize, what we have today is 3 built-in roles: admin, self-service, read-only. What's coming next? I would say what's coming in the next few weeks. Like, we're in private beta with some of our prospects and leading customers with tenant and domain scoped admin roles. We've taken a very unique approach to multi-tenancy, which is we've gone about using policy as code approach. And that is what we're bringing out to users in our next release, which enables custom roles that are coming out in the midterm.
You mentioned, Ayush, that custom roles are coming in the future. Can you give a little bit more information on that?
VMware customers are familiar with the features like custom role creation when it comes to multi-tenancy, that, hey, I want to create a user that has only a subset of privileges within, let's say, a tenant. How do I do that? To enable that kind of functionality, we are bringing in a create custom role feature in our upcoming release, where we give the user the ability to create custom roles, by which I mean is they can pick the object of their choice. And by object, I mean it could be compute, storage, networking, what have you, and then the associated actions with that object. So let's say I'm trying to create a custom role for myself, Ayush. Damian is the admin here. So Damian, you would go hit the create custom role button on our UI. You would pick that, hey, I want to give Ayush only read access to storage and write access to networking. So you would pick storage and pick the read-only action associated with it. And then you would pick networking and pick the write action associated with it. And then go create a role for Ayush. And what's enabling all of this in Private Cloud Director? I think going back to what I was talking to earlier about our policy-based approach. So we have really thought through what it means to build multi-tenancy for enterprises that run at scale. And one of the enablers, one of the key foundations of our multi-tenancy journey has been having a policy as code approach. So we have gone and taken the open policy agent route. For the uninitiated, so open policy agent is a CNCF graduated industry standard policy engine. Every access decision across compute, network, storage, identity goes through one consistent auditable layer. So every service that powers Private Cloud Director has a layer of OPA on top of it. It is audit ready, so you don't have to think twice about security and compliance here. And if you wanted, and if something went wrong in your system, you have the means to export your logs into the SIEM tool of your choice and go about troubleshooting. And it reinforces truly least privilege functionality in our product, like precisely who, what, where rules, which is the foundation for custom roles and separation of duties.
That's great. I actually really like that it's written as code as well. As a practitioner at heart, if you can't automate it, you can't manage it at scale. So having that being stored as code is also something that could be version controlled, as you put here, right? So that's really cool. Thank you, Ayush.
And Damian, just to add, I mean, all the functionality, especially the audit logging piece, is not just on the UI. We do have APIs for all of these available. We have API documentation on our public facing website. So if users are interested in playing around, I would encourage them to.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And the role-based access control, I don't know if Ayush mentioned this, but the role-based access control applies not only to the user interface, but to API actions as well. Our user interface actually just hits the API in the back end. So it's always the same role base, no matter how you're accessing Private Cloud Director. So thank you. Let's see if I've got any additional questions from the audience here. John, are you seeing anything that hasn't been answered?
Not at this moment. No, I'm good.
Okay.
I think. But we will stay on.
Yeah. Thank you for joining, folks. For next steps, I've put up some QR codes here on the screen. One goes to our hands-on labs. You can register for hands-on labs. We offer them in 2 different regions, one for America's time zones and the other for EMEA time zones. And then you can also hit that other QR code to contact us directly for a demo of Private Cloud Director or to speak to sales. Thank you very much for attending. And as John said earlier, we will stick around in the chat and answer any questions that you folks may have. Thank you.